Before we get to our guests, let me tell you this Under the Strap podcast is presented by Therabody. Do your muscles ever have that ouch feeling screaming for a massage? Help them relax with Theragun by Therabody. Go to therabody.com/caddy, CADDIE, to get your Theragun today, starting at only $199. All right, let's loop that bag on our shoulder and get under the strap.
Well, welcome everyone to another edition of the Under the Strap podcast. I'm your host, John Rathouz. Excited to be joined today by Steve Hulka, longtime tour caddy. He's a fixture on tour with the caddies, the players, the tournament directors. Great guy. Hey, Steve, thanks for joining me.
You got it, Johnny. I love it. You missed one word there. Long time. Long time. You add a long to long, and you got my career. Yeah.
I hear you, man.
42 years, but
that was what I was wondering. So you first started looping in 1972. And
I was
you guys
still
were
in
wearing...
school, like most white, long-haired hippie caddies that came out in the early 70s. We were going to college, but we heard about these tour events that we could go make 20 a day and 3% and, pad our wallets and have beer money going back to school. And a lot of guys who did come out in that era in the summer stayed in school. But when I got a couple of tournaments under my belt in my sophomore year, I called Dad and I said, Dad, I'm wasting your money. I'm not learning anything here. I tried to walk on the Illinois golf team. I was at Champaign at U of I. And the golf team didn't work out for me. I won the intramural championship, but that doesn't do you any good. So
yeah,
too much beer at the frat house and late nights not studying. I called Dad and I apologized. He said, "Hey, come on home. We'll find something for you to do." My dad was an educator, and he understood that, hey, if you're not learning anything, come home and learn it on the street. So a month or two later, I went to a little tournament in Southern Illinois called the Robinson Classic that I had caddied the year before just on a whim because I was at school and it was an hour from Champaign. I went back to that tournament, and that's when I started meeting some of the boys that came out that summer. Eddie Davis, who grew up with our buddy Heimer, rest in peace, Heimer, Alan Brown. These boys had caddied all summer. And they said, Hulka, what are you doing at home? Well, I had taken a construction job and I was working for my stepdad for $10 an hour, jackhammering foundations and, pounding nails and not playing golf. And I said, you know what? I think this sounds like a good idea. Well, the next week was the Quad Cities tournament. I drove my Mustang to Quad Cities. I caddied there. I went home for a week off before Napa. And I said, Dad, I think I'm going to try this tour caddy. And he goes, go for it. I did. And I went, what? You did? What do you mean you did? He said, yeah, Cliff and I, his fraternity brother at Northwestern, both on the GI Bill in the late 40s, were at Northwestern at a fraternity called Acacia. And Cliff was the captain of the golf team. And he said, come on, Frankie, let's go drive around the Southeast. And if we have money, we'll play golf. And if not, there's a bunch of tour events. I'll bet we could get a caddy job. And Dad said, yeah, I'll go. He's telling me this for the first time.
First
John.
time.
Yeah, I'd never heard this from him. I go, Dad, you're kidding me. You did it? I said, well, next week's Napa, I'm going to drive out there. So I bought thanks to Grandma, she fronted me some cash to buy a 1967 Dodge camper van for $2,300 from our family electrician who we knew in the neighborhood. And he sold me this van, and I immediately started my trek west to become a tour caddy in the fall of 1972.
That's
in
incredible.
Napa, California. Unbelievable. I was working for a guy named Dave Haberly back then. He eventually became the executive director of the Minnesota PGA. He didn't have what it took to make it on tour, but he gave me his bag for the usual $20 a day back in the fall of 72.
Well, so tell us a little bit. What was it like back then? What were some of the things that, were different about caddying now, 40 years later, and then some of the things that were the same? Because, much like yourself, I was right out of college And, I packed up the van and headed out west, and I kind of was chasing it too, because there's an adventure to it. There's an allure to it. Right. And it was in your blood, you found out there. I mean, I guess what was it like back then, being out on the road and what the other guys were up to as well?
Well, one of the advantages of having that camper van was you could load up 2 or 3 caddies every week, and you wouldn't have to pay for all the gas because they needed a ride. Everybody drove. Even the players owned station wagons back then, and they loaded their kids and their wife and drove from tournament to tournament. The tour was really good to set the schedule to make things drivable in the 70s, right? Because for the average tour player, and certainly a caddy, we couldn't afford to fly. Flying was so expensive, it was out of the question. So, everybody left on Friday afternoon if you missed the cut, or Sunday afternoon to get to the next tournament, which was never more than 500 or 600 miles away. There were very few long drives. So with this Dodge camper van, it had a kitchen. It had 2 racks, burlap racks that folded out on the top of this high top. It was a conversion top, so it had a sofa bed underneath. I could drive through the night and have 4 caddies in the back that were either awake doing their thing, back when it was illegal, and or they were sleeping. And one of the trips I'll never forget, Higgy. This guy Higgy was.
Oh yeah, Jerry.
Remember Jerry?
Is it
Jerry Higginbotham?
Oh, what a legend.
Higgy was sleeping on one of the burlap pullouts up top. He was in the upper bunk, and I hit a swale. And did this, and the van's loaded. I mean, got all this gear. We got it, but everybody traveled with their golf clubs back then. I don't know why.
Well, he's like 6'5", like skinny as a beanpole, folded up there.
Higgy was tall, and all of a sudden I hit this swale in the road, and the burlap ripped right down the middle, and he fell out of that upper bunk into a caddy sleeping on the sofa bed below, and there's all kinds of shenanigans. I mean, it was crazy, but I mean, we had a lot of fun, made no money. The players made no money. I mean, it was back when an average tour purse was $100,000 and 20 for first. You take a typical, I mean, I don't want to diss John Deere because I love it. It's in my home state, but John Deere is a regular tour event as opposed to a invitational or a major or some of the big money events. A lot of these tour events never had purses more than 300,000, and the average tour event was probably 200 or less. So when we were playing for 300,000, and first prize was 18% of that. No, it was 20%, because when David Graham won Westchester with me on his bag in 1976, he won $60,000, and I got my, back then, $175 salary and 5%, and paid off a Mercury Comet that he helped me buy after the van went away in like a year and a half. It wasn't roadworthy.
So you were rich then. I mean, that was
big money.
So you mentioned
grand. I mean, $3,000 in 1976 is like probably like a caddy of one of our colleagues today winning his 100 plus.
Sure. Oh yeah, for sure. So I guess who you mentioned, Higgy. Give us some other names, some guys that might still be looping, even Champions Tour or regular tour, even that are Fluff. I'm sure showed up on the scene at some point.
Oh yeah. Fluff was 1975 out of Maine. Tried to play the mini tours up in the Northeast when he was that age. He got wind of Caddie, and he came out and he worked for a guy named Ed Sabo before he landed Peter.
Yeah. And
that was his first bag. I'll never forget that. Who's still working? Pete Bender.
Yeah.
Pete was before me with, as you know, the Merry Mac. Well, not the Merry Macs. That's Trevino. The Mex, we called him, Andy Martinez, who had Johnny Miller back then. And Johnny and Andy were the team to beat almost every week. I mean, they called Johnny the Desert Rat in 1974-75 because he won Tucson and Phoenix back to back both years. He was the Desert Rat, and Andy would remember. I don't know if you remember this, John, but back in the day, Johnny allowed Andy to get in a catcher's position behind the ball on the putting green and line Johnny's bullseye up. And he would stay back there. The USGA finally said, no, we got to get rid of this, because he was on TV, and you got pictures of Andy when he looked like Cheech Marin back in the day with his long black hair and his mustache. And he was back there in a catcher's position with the putter going, no, Johnny, little left, little right. Okay, got it. Stroke it. That kind of thing. They did away with that because it became the Johnny Miller rule. And they didn't say you can't line up the putter. They said you're protecting Miller from the elements.
Oh.
That was their answer to changing the rule.
Much like they do for Bryson on the putting green now when he's warming up.
Yeah.
Get the umbrella out and kind of shield him from the elements. So then, and Andy's given half yards to Johnny too.
We always said Andy could walk across water, because we would go out in packs of 6, 8, 10 guys every Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning, and get our yardages, because obviously there were no yardage books. We wrote everything down on scorecards. I wish I could run to my cabinet and go get one of my original 50-year-old scorecards and show you. Maybe I can take pictures of it. You can put it on afterward, but it's incredible what information we could write on 2 scorecards, and that became our yardage books. And walking pace, Andy used to walk with his right arm swinging out because he felt like he could get a yard better than anybody else if he had this arm swing cadence that I bet today, if he went out and caddied for Lehman right now, he'd still do the same thing. Even though he had a picture book in his hand, he would still walk the book. He would make sure the book was right. Andy, they're shooting this stuff from the satellites. It's to the half yard. You're okay. Use the book. But hey, what a great mentor. He mentored me when I came out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember walking a golf course with an old caddy. I don't remember his last name now. Dow, and Andy Martinez mentored him, and I remember walking a golf course with him on the Corn Ferry Tour, and he was telling me about the corners of the greens. That's what Andy Martinez imparted on him. You got to cover the corners, and that was an important number in the back. The
carry yard
stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's interesting. Those are some of the most fun times I was a caddy. I always love walking the golf course, whether it be a Tuesday night or whenever it is, and you get out there with a couple other guys. It's such a cool time. The sun's going down.
Yeah.
And those are some of the most fun times of work, when you're out there on the road.
Well, the great thing too about that era, John, we didn't have any pin sheets, no whole location printouts from the rules office. We had to go get our own pins. So if let's say you were late early on Thursday, Friday, you were up at 6 o'clock and you're out there before the first group. And Andy and I used to have this little jog thing. We used to jump the gallery ropes back when I could actually get over a gallery rope, like a low hurdle. And we would run and we would get all 18 pins in like an hour, even if we had to split the 9s up. And we couldn't, even back then, we could not walk on the greens.
Sure.
So we had our notes about our green depths and this and that. And we would guesstimate within 2 yards what those pins were, write them down on another scorecard for that day. And then the guys who were actually in the morning would wait for us. And I remember Angelo Argea would always give us a $2 tip, Jack's caddy, because he needed those pins.
Yeah.
Because on every par 4 and par 5, Jack would go, "Where's the pin, Ange?" Jack wanted to hit it in the right center of the fairway for a left pin and vice versa. And Angelo better have those pins. So on early morning rounds for Mr. Nicklaus, Angelo Argea had the pins that he paid for from guys that were out there in the morning getting it done. But we all had to do it. You talk about a long work day.
Yeah.
What are you going to do between 7:30, 8 o'clock and your 1 o'clock tee time after you've been out there and already walked the golf course? It was a hard working era, but we loved it. And we were in great shape.
Oh, I'm sure.
We were all in great shape.
What you mentioned some guys there. Give me let's talk caddy nicknames. Just when you start thinking back through your Rolodex, Give me some of your favorite nicknames over the years.
All right. So I have to tell you that it was the black guys that were out there ahead of us in the late 60s and even the mid 60s, because they could caddy in the winter on the West Coast. They could caddy in the fall. And in the summer, they went home to their clubs in the mid South, or like Herman Mitchell, Big Mitch, Trevino's caddy, Del Taylor, who caddied for Billy Casper. These guys played the old Negro tour.
Oh,
These men who were out there before us took us young white boys and took us under their wing and taught us the ropes. They were the greatest. Walter Montgomery, who worked for Dave Stockton, one of my heroes. We called him Gumshoe. Walter was one of the best. He caddied in Dave's old golf shoes. He took the spikes out. He wore leather shoes to caddy. And can you imagine wearing old $200 FootJoys back in the day that didn't have spikes in them, because he wanted to look professional? So he caddied in spikeless leather golf shoes. I wore my teaching shoes. I wore FootJoy teaching shoes. It was crazy that we didn't caddy in tennies back then. We wore golf shoes with no spikes.
So were those guys that were out there before you that you were referencing, were they the ones handing out the nicknames at the beginning?
Well, actually, Bruce Edwards, our esteemed Tom Watson's caddy of the 70s, 80s, 90s, who unfortunately, as you know, John, we lost him to ALS back in 2004. Bruce was the king of nicknames. He was the original beauty.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one who gave Greg Norman a nickname, which I will not repeat because I love Greg Norman. Actually, it's not vulgar or anything. It's just that he called him Baby Man. Yeah. Don't ask me why, but Baby Man was because did Greg have some issues when he wasn't playing Greg Norman golf and whine to Bruce? You know, I mean, my stellar bag in my Hall of Famer in the 70s was David Graham.
Yeah.
I picked up David in the summer of 1973, thanks to Steve Melnick coming out of the locker room in Robinson, Illinois, my first tournament. Now here I am a year later on my first full year on tour at my original event in Illinois, my home state. Melnick went in from a morning round. He came out after lunch. He goes, "Hey, Steve, I was covering for E. Shane Greer, Melnick's caddy, for 3 weeks that summer because Shane went back to the Cape and had some family get-togethers that he couldn't miss. And so I covered for him with the original Fluff. Steve Melnick's nickname was Fluff back then.
Oh, that's the original Fluff.
The player, okay. Steve Melnick, University of Florida, won the U.S. Amateur, great player, big guy. Mm-hmm. So he comes out of the locker room and he says, "Hey, I was just having lunch with David Graham and he's looking for a new caddy." He had an Augusta caddy that couldn't work year round because he had to go back to Augusta and he was looking for somebody full time. And I go, "David Graham? Didn't he win the Cleveland Open last year, the Australian?" He goes, Yeah. World Cup winner with Devlin. Sure, I'll talk to him. So Steve went back inside. He said, "David will be out on the range with us this afternoon. Have a word with him and see if we can get something set up." So I met David on the range at Robinson and introduced myself, and he says, "Nice to meet you, Steven." Well, that became my nickname from disco. Steven. Disco Dennis would always see me and go, "Hello, Steven," because David in his Australian accent was always calling me Steven. And the career I had with David started a couple weeks down the road in Hartford at the old Wethersfield Country Club where Bruce Edwards cut his teeth caddying. And that was his home course growing up as a kid. And he got the idea he was going to go on tour because as a high schooler, he won a $60 paycheck from Dick Lotz, and he never cashed the check. If we all read Caddy for Life, his book with John Feinstein, he put that check on his wall. There you go. You know the story.
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and
that's how it got started. So that's how I got my start with David Graham. Uh-huh. And it was pretty interesting because the first ball I ever saw David hit on the first hole at Wethersfield that July went dead right with a 3-wood. It was a 320-yard straightaway hole, but it had a lot of trees and stuff on the right. And he blocked his 3-wood, hit a tree, rattled around, came down amongst a marshal and like 10 fans, never found the ball. We started out, he had to walk back to the tee. We started our career with a lost balls double. Thank God I didn't get fired after the first round.
Right. And you guys had you had a win together, yeah?
We actually had eight wins together, but only 2 on the PGA Tour, 4 on the Senior Tour, and 2 in Australia. And I caddied for David from 73 to 79. Mm-hmm. And then again, when in 1996, when he turned 50, we had our wins on the Senior Tour in the mid 90s.
Well,
I think we still hold the Senior Tour record for most holes in a playoff. And I'm going to show you the up here on my golf wall.
Oh yeah, look at that wall.
This is the living room of our house, and you can see over here. There's the checkered flag from Miami, and it says the Sunset Boys. He and Stockton went 10 holes at Miami at Biscayne. It was a course way out on the peninsula, and they finished in the dark. And on one hole, David hit it up there. Oh gosh, 4.5 feet, and we're going to win it. It's like the 3rd or 4th playoff hole. Stockton chips it in. We have to make the putt to tie. We go back around. We're going 16, 17, 18, 16, 17, 18. When the fans started following us in the playoff and we kept going, they got tired of going back out to 16. We're riding in carts out to the 16th hole, par 3. Mm-hmm. And the fans are saying, the heck with this. We'll just go sit in the stands. They'll get to 18 again.
Right.
And on one hole, I'll never forget this. We're on 16. David's got it 20 feet behind the hole for birdie. Stockton's in there 6 feet under the hole. We've got to make this, right? David's getting ready to draw it back with the putter. And on the hill behind the bunker, we hear, bring, bring. And it's the day, this is 1997. This is new cell phones when they were like walkie-talkies, right?
Yeah,
the size of walkie-talkies. This guy's cell phone goes off. Without missing a beat, David backs off the putt and he turns around. He goes, if that's for me, tell him I'm busy. Goes right back to the putt, gets over it. I don't know if he lipped it out. He tapped in. Stockton was still laughing so hard when he missed his 6-footer. We kept going. He finally beat him on the 10th hole. Yeah.
Wow.
That was one of our classic wins. We had a blast.
Taking a moment at the halfway house here at the turn to tell you more about the Therabody Theragun. Simply put, it's the best massaging tool on the market and used by nearly every caddy and player on the tour. It doesn't matter if you just walked 18 in the rain with a 40-pound bag on your shoulder on the Monterey Peninsula, or you were playing in the club championship, or maybe chasing around your 3-year-old while raking leaves. The Theragun is the perfect solution to leave you in better shape to do it again 10 to 20 minutes while you're watching the game on TV, and instant relief. I can't recommend it enough. It's a must-have for any active person. There it is, working right there. Okay, let's get back under the strap.
Well, so then, when I first popped out on tour, you were with Brian Davis. Talk about another guy that's approaching 50 now, and you guys had a great run together. I guess
6 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. And one of those, and he got to think if he's healthy when he gets out there, he's going to be one of those guys that, will contend and find a way to get a win. I guess one of the ones that comes to mind, was that one that happened at Hilton Head. I mean, it was, I was reading an article, you called him on the 10th anniversary of this incident where Brian called a penalty on himself in a playoff with Jim Furyk. You were there for it. Yes.
Yep.
I get, what do you remember about, I mean, what a crazy thing to be a part of.
The whole thing about Hilton Head, coming down 18 in regulation, and we played with Fluff and Furyk that day. And Furyk, honest to God, he missed 6 or 7 putts. He should have won that tournament by 5 shots. So Brian, howling right to left on 18, hits a 6-iron, which Faldo, I found out when I watched the replay, thought it was a 7-iron, but he cut a 6. He held it open. It got to the front of the green, bounced behind the hole, 25, 30 feet. Furyk goes in the back bunker. We're tied.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, I'm sorry. Furyk had a 1-shot lead. This was in regulation.
Mm-hmm.
Furyk hits it out to 4 feet, front left pin at 18 at Harbor Town.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite course in life. And Brian BD makes the 30-footer for birdie. I gave it one of these. Nance got a big kick out of it because I gave it my high school drum major high kick. I went boom like this with the leg way up in the air.
Right.
And ball goes in. Of course, Furyk made his 4-footer. So back out we go, to 18. And we hit it almost in Brian's divot. And wind's still howling right to left. And he tugs it in Calabogie Sound. Now, if the tide was in, we're dropping. We're hitting 4, 2 in, 3 out, hitting 4 because it would have been in water. But he's on wet sand, pin high. Pin is, right there in front of us. He looks at this reed that was behind the ball, and we're hunched over the ball in this Calabogie Sound, looking at the lie, perfect lie on wet sand. And he points at this reed sticking behind it. It was piled up reeds from the tide that had left it right behind his ball. And he looks at this reed that's sticking out about 6 inches behind the ball. And he goes, that concerns me. Well, I didn't know what he meant at that point, but he knew the rule. He goes, I'm just gonna take the drop and chip it in. And now Furyk's already back of the green, chipped up, did almost the same thing. He chipped to 4 feet. He was not in the bunker this time. He went long, chipped it to 4 feet, marked his ball. I go, Brian, don't give up your chance to make 3. You're a great bunker player. This is on a decent lie, wet sand. It's going to spin, blah, blah, blah. So he hits the shot. It goes 25 feet past the hole. Just, wet sand, came out hot, spin, stop. Slugger's watching the whole thing. Slugger White, our esteemed, now retired
rules
tour official. And Brian goes like this, Slugger, and he crosses his arms. And I take the bag, I get out of the sound, I go over to the bag, get the towel, And I see him talking to Slugger. And I'm like, what's going on? Well, as I found out later, Brian said to Slugger, we got to look at this. Something happened. I couldn't tell. And when you see it in slow motion, and it's on YouTube, it's called the Legacy of Brian Davis or something like that, where you can watch this whole thing. Well, they replayed in slow motion, hit the tip of his sand wedge, touched this reed that moved 1/4 of an inch. Might have been the wind of the club going by it. I don't know.
Sure.
But then Slugger pulled the reed out from the pile and he said, I'm sorry, Brian, that's 2 shots. It was unattached. If it was growing, no penalty.
So bizarre. And then these days, no big deal, which is kind of crazy.
Well, they changed the rule. It's now the Brian Davis rule. Now, if you hit anything on your way back, loose impediment, it became a loose impediment. And he touched that on the way back, which was the penalty back then, 11 years ago, 12 years ago. Yeah. But now it's not a penalty. And I question why was that a rule in the first place? Well, think about it, John. Same tournament. What did we always get in the bunkers from the trees? That Spanish moss.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had a clump of Spanish moss behind your ball and the penalty wasn't there, you could, on your backswing, whisk that moss away to hit your bunker shot. Because we've seen it all the time at that tournament where the moss falls in the bunkers. So now you can probably.
The tournament's had some infractions there go down with the Stewart Sink one that I don't know, a couple years later or whatever.
Exactly.
I want to hear Chad just a little bit about your business that you started. Tell people about it. And now you've got your son Ben and his wife are kind of running the show. But I mean, you and your wife, it was a family affair for a long time. And you start this business, still is, to kind of basically haul anything and everything from one tournament stop to the next. I mean, talk about how that kind of came. Did you get that idea from when you were rolling around in the van back in the day? And I got a couple questions about.
I had no idea I was going to work that hard for that long, but no, this all came out of our tragedy that our country endured in 2001, 9/11. I was in the Baltimore airport flying home from my aunt's funeral. And I took a backpack with me. This was 2 weeks after 9/11. We were on the East Coast finishing the year. And I was in a security line for over an hour. And I looked at these two Army uniformed soldiers with their M16s cocked like I was in Beirut, the airport there. And I could not believe that our airports were coming to this. Mm-hmm. And that's when I first started thinking that how are the players, if this is what our airports are going to become, what are the players going to do with golf bags and their wives and their kids and their strollers and their luggage? How are they going to get through security with all their gear? They need to walk to the gate. I need to figure out a way to make it easier for them to travel, because every week could be our airports. Mm-hmm. So at the time I was working for Pat Bates, University of Florida golfer, Fabio. We talked
great hair
about nicknames. We got to get back on nicknames when
Fabio.
Fabio was the long-haired dude from Florida, played with Chris
Barlow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Craig Barlow. I think they had a national championship team, but Pat was a great guy to work for. Loved the Lord. He was a sweetheart. And when we went back out for the 2002 season, I said, Pat, that whole thing really affected me. We need to figure out some kind of business where I could maybe haul luggage for you guys, and you walk to the gates. You don't have to worry about it, because I'll drive it through the night. I'll get a truck and a trailer. Yeah. And so we barnstormed, and the guys that we barnstormed with were all part of the tour fellowship, guys that were believers in the Lord. And that was Ben Crane. That was Jonathan Bird. That was Paul Stankowski, who I worked for all of those guys. I was fortunate to have weeks with them down the road, but there was another one. Tim Herron was in on this, bouncing ideas about how we were going to do this. Stanko, by the way, said, Hulka, don't spend all that money on a truck and trailer. Just rent a Ryder truck every week. Because we had Ryder as a sponsor, the rental truck company. They used to sponsor Doral. He said, rent a truck and just drop it off week to week. And I go, jeepers, Paul. I mean, that could be $200, $300, $400 a week. I don't know if I'm going to make expenses, and the hassle of not having my own. And he goes, well, you know what? This is such a good idea. The tour's going to take it away from you. And, I mulled over what he said, but I really wanted to own my own rig and be responsible for it. But I also knew I had to also call up the tour office and get permission to do this. I couldn't just show up.
Right.
This is back, we're talking 2002. I actually launched the business in 2003, but this is back, John, when we did not have any credentials to get through the front gate.
Right.
In fact, years ago, when Heimer was working for Chi-Chi and we pulled into San Antonio, he was with me in my van, not the old van, a newer van. And we get to the front gate and I go, this is Chi-Chi Rodriguez's caddy. He's got Chi-Chi's clubs in his suitcase. We'd like to go drop it off. He goes, well, what are you guys? We're caddies. This is back when we had to get a caddy badge every week when we registered. Well, we're just going to drop this off, sir. No, you can't do it. I go, well, sir, I need to drop this off. We're not going to lug it in from caddy parking, which was always, $10 so we're having this conversation that went up a level. And I go, sir, I'm going to drive in and I'm going to be right back out. Well, I drove in and I dropped Heimer off with the luggage and I drove back out. This guy ran to Jack Tudhill, who was then the head official on tour. And he said, hey, this caddy disobeyed me, drove by and I told him not to come in and da-da-da. I go park and I get ready to I get to the course and one of the officials came up to it. You need to go see Jack. I walked into Jack Tudhill's office. I said, he said, what did you do coming in here today? I go, well, I had Chi-Chi and Heimer in my van and I dropped them off and I left. He goes, impersonating a tour professional, 6 weeks off.
Really?
I couldn't believe it. I'm not believing what I had heard. He goes, you got 6 weeks off for disobeying a volunteer at the entrance to the club. That's how tough it was back in those days.
Right.
This was probably late 70s. Oh yeah. I was working for This was 1976, I believe. And that leads me to tell you how I ended up coming back and actually getting a week with Arnold Palmer.
Oh, wow.
What
was that like?
Well, back in those 70s, we had a pickup softball team that we used to play local like radio TV people that had their little softball. They got word that the caddies on tour had a softball team. So if word got out that the local softball team wanted to give us a go, we picked up a game on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. We had fun. Well, we're having a practice. I can't tell you where we were, but we're in a sandlot field somewhere, and we've chosen up sides. And of course, like Pete Rose nailed, I think it was Ray Fosse in the 1970 All-Star game and broke his collarbone. I was on second base. There was a hit to the outfield. Who's at home plate catching but Mark Barnes, who was caddying for Arnold at the time. I come barreling around third. A play was at the plate. I crash into him and I break his collarbone.
So you take out and you end up
commission for 6 weeks. Arnie caddied 1 week and I got the bag in Hartford.
Unbelievable. One of the highlights of your career for sure.
It was one of those highlights. Definitely. That's
amazing.
Yeah. I mean, to get the bag that way was pretty. My Mark was out for 6 weeks and Arnie played 1 week. And it was Hartford. And since David wasn't playing then, I had the week off from David Graham. So I said, Arnie, I'll cover for Mark. And the greatest thing about that era is we used to always call each other pro. Hey, pro, good morning. Hey, pro, caddies, players. Everything was pro. That's like today, it's hi, buddy, hi, pal. That was our greeting to everybody. So first day with Arnie on the range, Tuesday, we go to the range and I set the balls down and Arnold starts hitting and we get into a conversation and I use the word pro to him. And he looked me right in the eye and he goes, Steve, my name is Arnold or Arnie, not pro. Yes, sir, Mr. Palmer. I mean, he just set me straight. I guess he didn't like that moniker, everybody else using it. It's kind of like Jerry McGee used to call everybody Muff. Hey, Muff. Yeah. Hey, Muff. It's crazy stuff.
I love that story about Arnold. And so it brings me to this week. Tours at the, Bob Hope Chrysler Classic, not the Chrysler,
my God.
AMX now, the Bob Hope. I mean, and I remember when Arnold Palmer's course was on the rotation, he's got a nice restaurant there. So tell me a little bit about that week and kind of what it's been over the years. I mean, it's still a really cool tournament. Some celebrities show up and whatnot. I guess just give me your brief on what comes to mind when you think about the Bob Hope.
You know what comes to mind, Johnny? My first trip there. First ever, 1973, and it involves Arnold Palmer. And I didn't have a bag that week. They had a little tournament, Monday, Tuesday satellite event. And the guy that I was caddying for at the beginning of my first full year on tour was not in the Bob Hope that week. So we played in this satellite tournament down the road for 2 days. And then I wanted to go out and take in the Bob Hope Desert Classic that I always watched on television. I mean, who didn't growing up in that era? And I wanted to see Arnie tee off. So I don't know how I got in the tournament because I didn't have a badge that week, but I still wanted to go see Arnie tee off. So I get to the putting green at Indian Wells and it's right before Arnie's tee time. And he's chatting with who knows. I mean, there's celebrities everywhere because he's obviously in the celebrity rotation. I mean, James Garner could have been there and Bing Crosby and but I'm focused on Arnie. I wanted to see Arnie play a round of golf. So I was going to follow him around. Well, he gets ready to go. It's his tee time. And from the putting green at Indian Wells to the first tee was about a 30-yard walk. And there were marshals on either side that rolled out these ropes so the players could walk amongst the gallery. I mean, there's gallery everywhere. And I'm next to this Palm Springs gal. Okay. She was a local. All right. Mm-hmm. And she's got everything going on. She's got the makeup. She's got the dress. She's to full nines, right? She's ready to see Arnold. Arnold walks by us. I'm standing. She's on my right. And as he walks by, he looks at her and not me, he makes eye contact with her and he winks at her. She goes like this. She goes, both arms across her chest. She goes, "Oh, Arnold." I thought she was going to faint right there just because Arnold Palmer said, looked at her and winked. And it was just the craziest thing. I'll never forget it. We're talking 29 years ago, 39 years ago, 49 years ago. Do the math.
How many women he did that to over the years?
Well, he did it to all of them. He did. Dean Martin would have too.
Story.
It's a great story. I mean, just that's the charisma Arnie had just from a distance.
Yeah.
To everyone. Right, I was there because I wanted to see Arnold tee off.
Right. Exactly. You didn't have the same reaction, but
not the same reaction, but it was like, yeah, Arnold, I can see you're
I see what you're doing there, Arnie.
You got him right where you want him, buddy.
And then you went and Luke for him later on. Hey, last thing, like one of the things you spearheaded over the years that I'm wondering if it's going on next week or not, if you're going to be out there, is this Under the Lights at Indio par 3 tournament for all the caddies on a Tuesday night. Is that happening this year?
It is. And I've done it from a long distance because I called Dave Ruvolo, the pro out at the Lights. And I said, Dave, we still got to have the tournament, right? And he said, absolutely. You put it together and we'll have it. And so I handed off the responsibilities to David Flynn, who's now working for Kevin Tway, because he ran it one year when I wasn't there. And so David agreed to run the tournament. I put the sign-up sheets together. He should get the one by today in Hawaii. Ben is driving out. He and Heidi are driving out a couple of sheets for the Caddie area in Palm Springs on Monday, Tuesday. And between those two sign-up sheets, we should get our, hopefully our 20 teams, 2-man teams, and have the night game with the skins. Remember a couple of years ago, Valelli made a hole-in-one on 9?
Yes.
I put that on the sheet. I put it on the sheet.
Yeah.
And Dennis, well, you know what? Dennis Paulson promised me if he's there and he's got the time, he can do it. He's gonna pair with me. I'm gonna take the 4-hour drive in the Camaro and get out there and play.
Absolutely. And is that a Tuesday night thing?
Tuesday night game. Yeah.
All right.
And then
we're hoping. Yeah, exactly. And on to the Beer Hunter. And we're hoping to cover that a little bit on the Caddie Network. I had a really fun time there over the years. I love seeing Mark Cairns swing a golf club. We're going to try to get some Mark Cairns action swinging the. Oh, for sure. You got to have Mark Cairns action. Do you remember when Mark said on the first tee about 5-6 years ago, he goes, we're on the first tee, and he yells out, and this is when Big George, our caddy chaplain from St. Louis, was out. This is the year George made his hole-in-one. Well, on the first tee, Cairns goes, $10 hole-in-ones. We're playing a gangsome. I think that was one night where we just went out. We had like 16 guys and Dave let us go out in a gangsome. And so to that, Teddy Scott, Bubba's caddy, says, and $20. Wait a minute. What did he say? Oh, and $20 for the next one. That's what it was. Cairns goes $10 hole-in-ones. And then Teddy chimed in $20 for another one. Because we're on a par 3 course. We figure we're going to ace every hole, right? Right. We get around to the 14th hole, and who makes a hole-in-one but Chaplain George? And somewhere's that video. I've got to find it and send it to you. George probably has it. There's our puppy. And dang it, if we get on the next tee and he's getting razzed and we're filming him, and do you know what he did, Johnny? On the very next hole, when we're telling him, oh, come on, George, we just handed him $160 on the green, all the guys that owed him. He's on the next tee with a 6-iron, same club he just made the hole-in-one with. And we go, come on, George, $20 hole-in-one right here. He hit the stick. He hit the stick with his next shot. What a legend. That's not an easy golf course. That's not an easy golf course. No. Well, hey, we're looking forward to following that this year. Hey, Steve, thanks a lot for your time joining me on Under the Strap podcast. It's been awesome to catch up with you. You got some great stories, and thanks for all you've done for us loopers over the year. Yeah, we'll have you on again. So yeah, all the best. Love to see you soon. And you also. Thanks a lot, buddy. Brett. Yep. See you, bud. Cheers. All right. Cheers.
A reminder, this Under the Strap podcast is presented by the Theragun. I'm host John Rathouz. Set your downloads, leave a review, and we'll be back with another podcast soon. In the meantime, check out the daily content on our website, thecaddynetwork.com, Facebook, and Twitter and Instagram @Caddie Network, CADDIE. Thanks for listening.